Hello and welcome to Wavescan, the international DX program from Adventist World Radio. Researched and written in Indianapolis by Dr. Adrian Peterson and produced in the studios of WRMI Shortwave in Miami. I'm Jeff White. Today on Wavescan, two book reviews, the World Radio TV Handbook 2014 and Australian Radio History by Dr. Bruce Carty. We'll also have a variety of international DX news and our DX report from the Philippines. Well, the long-awaited 2014 edition of the World Radio TV Handbook has finally arrived, and we take delight in giving you an audio preview of this important annual publication. To do so, here's KVOH's Ray Robinson.
All 672 pages are chock full of interesting and up-to-date information that is fundamentally necessary for any and every international radio monitor. The 68th edition of the WRTH is compiled, as always, from information obtained directly from thousands of medium-wave, shortwave and FM stations located in all countries around the world, together with monitoring information provided by a panel of well-known international radio monitors who specialize in different areas of the international radio spectrum. The publisher is Nicholas Hardiman, the international editor is Sean Gilbert, and the high-quality annual volume is printed and published in England. All of the several articles in this year's WRTH are, as always, of real interest, and the first tells the radio story of international radio monitor Marx van Arnhem in Holland. Listed also are the names of the many international radio monitors who provide monitoring assistance to WRTH. Some of these men you may know personally, some you know by name only, and others are equally well known in other parts of the world. You'll note, for example, that Jose Jacob, VU2JOS in India, is listed representing his country. Listed also are reviews of half a dozen new radio receivers varying in price from $245 right up to $6,500. Some of these receivers are standalone units and others are attached to a computer system. Two men who stand high in the international radio world have contributed major feature articles. Jerome Berg of Suburban Boston presents the history of shortwave broadcasting in a nutshell, together with half a dozen mouth-watering QSL cards in full color. Victor Gunatilaka of Colombo, Sri Lanka, tells the story of broadcasting in Sri Lanka with on-the-spot photos. Another feature article presents the story of the Voice of Vietnam from Hans Johnson in Florida. A total of 13 maps in shiny full color show you the locations of the world's shortwave stations, and then begins the listing of medium wave and FM stations with postal addresses in every country in alphabetical order, beginning with Afghanistan. The listing of medium wave stations in Australia shows a total of only 14 transmitters in 5 states operating at 50 kilowatts, all on the air with government ABC programming. The highest power for a commercial station on medium wave in Australia is 10 kilowatts, with just 3 stations, 4KQ on 693 kHz and 4TAB on 1008 kHz, both in Brisbane, and 6PR on 882 kHz in Perth. The public broadcasting station 2WB in Burke, New South Wales, also operates at 10 kilowatts on a medium wave channel 585 kHz. The listing for Brazil shows nearly 2,000 medium wave stations, with 100 on shortwave. China and Russia have just as many, and the United States has even more. Lonely Pitcairn Island is shown with 2 FM stations at very low power, 87.5 MHz with 2.5 watts, and 107 MHz at 1 watt. Zimbabwe is at the end of the alphabetical list in the section for national radio. The international shortwave section is followed by a listing of all clandestine stations currently on the air. Just as appealing is all of the advertising presented in full color. Many receivers are shown, as is also transmission equipment for broadcasters and radio magazines with a wide appeal too.
Well, thank you very much, Ray. I want to mention that we have seen a copy of an article in Radio World, which came out on January 27th. This is a magazine for radio managers and engineers in the United States, entitled Spy Numbers Stations Still Baffle and Enthrall. Very interesting article by Christopher Friesen. And, if you live in this part of the world, you may have heard, tuning across the shortwave bands, these transmissions, particularly in Spanish, a series of 5 numbers or digits given over and over, different digits that are supposedly codes being sent to spies around the world, believed to come from Cuba, many of them. It's a very interesting article, Christopher Friesen. If you'd like to read it, you can go to the NASB, the National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters, Facebook page. It's facebook.com/NASB Shortwave, and then you will see a link to this article about spy numbers stations from Radio World. Again, it's www.facebook.com/NASB Shortwave. You'll see the link there.
You're listening to Wavescan from Adventist World Radio. Send your comments and reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229 in the United States. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229 in the USA. Or you can email us at wavescan@awr.org. Our email once again, wavescan@awr.org.
Reports from northeast India indicate that serious consideration is currently being given to the introduction of a new time zone for all of the northeastern states. At the present time, there's only one time zone in India, UTC, plus 5.5 hours. And this is 90 minutes wide right across India. Unofficially, the tea gardens in northeast India observe their own time zone 1 hour later than the official local time. The New Zealand DX Times reports that a group of news reporters from China visited a DX camp in northern Finland to investigate the medium-wave DX scene. A total of 14 beverage antennas, each 3,000 feet long, is established at the DX camp, and one of their major interests is to tune into medium-wave stations that are on the air in mainland China. And while we're talking about China, we can mention another item in a recent edition of the New Zealand DX Times. A giant radio receiver was placed on display in the Radio Museum in the lobby of the Central People's Broadcasting Station in Yunnan Province. This radio was built at a nearby radio factory. It measures 14 feet long, 8 feet high, and 4.5 feet thick, and it was designed to tune in the 4 local radio channels. A recent edition of the magazine Radio Maailma in Finland reports that a new long-wire beverage antenna was installed at their DX camp at Aikiniemi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. The antenna was beamed at 160 degrees, and a multitude of medium-wave stations in Iran were logged. The American radio magazine Popular Communications reported a while ago that a radio has been produced in London with the use of a printed circuit board, which is in the shape and the form of a map of the underground railway system in London. The American news magazine Radio World reported recently that the new skyscraper in New York City is now ready to accept organizations that would like to establish radio and TV stations in their building. This new tower, One World Trade Center, is constructed on the site of the previous buildings that were destroyed in the air attack designated 9/11, September 11th, 2001. The height of the new building stands at 1,776 feet at the top of the spire, 1/3 of a mile high. This is 49 feet taller than the previous building on the same site. In another report, Radio World printed a photograph of a wireless transmitter that was in use in Berlin for the broadcast of speech transmissions in the year 1906. Currently, Adventist World Radio is on the air on 5 FM stations in India. The scheduling is as follows, and we might add that reception reports would be appreciated. From Hyderabad, AIR Vivid Bharati on 102.8 megahertz with 10 kilowatts. That's in Telugu. Daily it's 1730 Indian Standard Time. From Pune, AIR Vivid Bharati on 101.0 megahertz, 10 kilowatts, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 1845 IST. From Shillong, AIR FM Rainbow on 103.6 megahertz with 10 kilowatts, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 1645 Indian Standard Time. From Trivandrum, Big FM 92.7 megahertz with 5 kilowatts, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 1330 IST. And from Bengaluru, AIR FM Rainbow 101.3 megahertz, 10 kilowatts, in English, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 1645 IST. Also via AIR DTH. And while we're talking about AWR FM transmissions, we report that the first AWR FM station in Indonesia was inaugurated recently at Manado in the province of North Sulawesi. This station is currently on the air on 90.6 megahertz, 12 hours daily, according to the license requirements, and it is expected that a full-time schedule will be introduced during the earlier part of this year, 2014. The station identifies on air as Radio Angkat Nefiri in Bahasa Indonesia, title that is taken from the AWR theme melody under the title Jesus is Coming Again. The National Institute of Amateur Radio was established with its headquarters at Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, India, in the year 1983. The activities of the organization include awareness programs, training, technical workshops, advocacy, de-expeditions, contesting, and emergency communications to promote people participating in communication through amateur radio. Celebrating 3 decades of continuous service to society, the NIAR Club station will operate a special call sign, AU3NIAR, throughout this year, 2014, for which a special QSL card is available. The medium wave station VL2NI on Norfolk Island carries a relay of radio programming from New Zealand, states David Rickwish in a recent edition of the New Zealand DX Times. Norfolk Island is an Australian territory out in the Pacific, some 877 miles from the Australian coastline. Station VL2NI operates on medium wave 1566 kilohertz, and the programming from Radio National in New Zealand is received on Norfolk Island via satellite. A recent feature article states that the transmission of spark gap Morse code in the United States was prohibited by law beginning on January 1st, 1940. Well, you may have heard our interview the other day with Jerry Plummer from the HFCC High Frequency Coordination Conference in Malaysia. Well, Jerry has sent us some additional information about that conference, which took place on January 20th to the 24th at the Hotel Istana. Approximately 110 persons were in attendance for the conference in Kuala Lumpur, representing a bit above the average attendance. Monday of the conference week started with the opening plenary, where Dr. Amal Punchihewa of the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union welcomed the attendees with remarks regarding the rapidly changing technologies of the medium, stressing the digital divide and that access of information is a basic human right. He noted that less than a third of the world has current internet access and that shortwave is still a viable and usable medium for information access. Basil Zubi of the Arab States Broadcasting Union then reminded the attendees that the analog to digital conversion still has a long way to go worldwide and that DRM for the ASBU is still a large part of future planning. Basil noted that shortwave is the de facto transmission standard in the arid desert Arab countries from a propagation standpoint. We also have more information from that HFCC conference from the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union's weekly DX Digest, and this was published in Glenn Hauser's DX Listeners Digest via Mike Terry. Shortwave will continue to be an important part of broadcasting. A coordinating conference hosted by the ABU in Kuala Lumpur has been told. The 10th Global Shortwave Coordination Conference at the High Frequency Coordination Conference with the ABU and the Arab States Broadcasting Union from 20 to 24 January 2014 is part of the regular twice-yearly seasonal management of shortwave frequencies around the globe to coordinate usage and minimize interference. Mr. Basil Zubi, head of transmission at ASBU, said, "Shortwave programs will continue to be vital in addressing and communicating with some important parts of the world, especially with Internet penetration in the Arab countries around 34%, while in some other parts of the world it is less than 10%. He said the ASBU has adopted TDAB Plus as a delivery platform for regional audio broadcasting, though the union continued to support shortwave DRM as an important delivery medium for international as well as national coverage, which is why the ASBU was calling for a universal radio chipset. HFCC Chairman Mr. Aldrich Chipp said shortwave radio was important for travelers and isolated people, and it reached across the digital divide to the most disadvantaged and marginalized societies. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies had underlined this role of wireless radio in the 2013 World Disaster Report. It said that marginalized populations may not have the money or the knowledge to take advantage of the digital revolution, Mr. Chipp said. The report has noted that with only 6% of people in low-income countries using the Internet in 2011, the digital divide was still stark, and therefore access to low-cost media technology was really the key. He also urged the conference that effort was needed to ensure that terrestrial broadcasting was part of the framework of the global strategy for disaster risk reduction. ABU Director of Technology Dr. Amal Punchehewa reiterated the importance of ensuring there were mechanisms in place to deliver information technology to the most needy and vulnerable populations around the globe. He said the ABU will continue to work with our partners to ensure this technology will survive and thrive for the benefit of the population in times of crisis, in areas of isolation, and at the most vulnerable times. Mr. Gary Stanley, rapporteur of the HFCC Steering Board, thanked the ABU for hosting the conference and said shortwave radio was still very important for disseminating news and information to regions where Internet penetration was low and other ways of receiving international media were limited. Also from DX Listening Digest via John Figliazzi, more information about the 27th Annual Winter SWL Fest in Pennsylvania. That is taking place March 14th and 15th. NASWA, the North American Shortwave Association, has announced preliminary program details for its 27th Annual Winter SWL Festival to be held at the Doubletree Suites Hotel in Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, March 14th and 15th. The Winter SWL Fest is the largest and longest-running annual meeting of shortwave radio enthusiasts and hobbyists in the Western Hemisphere. Beyond the opportunity to renew old friendships and make new contacts, the conference serves as a forum for discussion of radio-related matters of interest and import to the attendees, which have numbered in excess of 200 in some recent years. This year's program of forums features two presentations by Australian Mark Fahey, who has traveled to North Korea extensively in recent years. Over 4 successive trips to each province of the country, he has taken monitoring and recording equipment, enabling the recording of hundreds of hours of domestic radio and television broadcasting. Scheduled for successive afternoons on Friday and Saturday, Behind the Curtain, North Korean Broadcasting and Propaganda will extensively discuss and feature audio and video examples of North Korean internal and external broadcasting, international and clandestine broadcasters that manage to penetrate through the jamming, as well as descriptions and photographs of the media infrastructure used by North Korea. In addition to the ever-popular annual forums on scanning and unlicensed broadcasting, otherwise known as pirate radio, the 2014 Fest program will also feature the following sessions and presenters, subject to revision. Radio Broadcasting, The Earliest Years by Dr. Harold Cones. Navigating a Future for the Radio Hobby by Sheldon Harvey, President of the Canadian International DX Club. Internet Radio 2.0 by Rob DeSantos. A Practical Guide to Loop Antennas by Jeff Eichner. Developing a Shortwave Radio Archive by Thomas Witherspoon, president of Ears to Our World. Whatever Happened to Digital Radio by Mark Phillips. IONA Sounders and Other Real-Time Propagation Aids by Tracy Wood. And Ham Radio Tools for SWLs by Skip Airy. There's also David Gorin's Friday Night Shortwave Shindig Radio Studio Party, as well as brief talks by Paul Ladd on World Christian Broadcasting's shortwave transmitter projects, and by Alan Ludell of WDEL Radio on trends in U.S. commercial radio, especially news talk radio. Not to mention the Saturday Night Banquet and the Grand Raffle. We are also going to be broadcasting live 1 hour from David Gorin's talk on Friday night from 0200 to 0300 UTC from WRMI in Miami on 7570 kilohertz. That's on a beam to North America on the Friday, March 14th. That would be 0200 UTC on March 15th. 7570 kilohertz from WRMI, 0200 to 0300 UTC. If you would like details on the location, registration, meals, and lodging for the SWL Winter Fest, they are available from the official website, which is swlfest.com. That's swlfest.com. Now, let's go to Henry Omahai and his Philippine DX report.
Hello everyone, to our dear shortwave listeners, good evening, good morning. Wherever you are, welcome to the February 9th edition of the Philippine DX News. This is report number 84. I'm Henry Umaday in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental, Central Philippines. Glad to be back and thank you for listening. This month is our 7th year anniversary. I would like to thank all of you for your support through the years. Our DXer friends sent their report, most recently Mr. Bikram Kishpala in United Kingdom and Mr. Eduardo Finalilio in Chile, South America. Thank you very much. Reception logs for January 2014. January 1, Radio Free Asia on 15310 in Vietnamese at 1548 UTC as a rating 455. January 1, the Chavela Radio on 15275 in Arabic at 1500 UTC as a rating 333. January 1, Voice of America on 15250 in English at 1501 UTC as a rating 555. The January 2, Radio Thailand World Service on 9390 in English, Pramod Antani at 1230 UTC as a rating 444. January 2, KTWR Transworld Radio on 15160 in Filipino from Guam at 1235 UTC as a rating 444. January 2, China Radio International ECFM on 7205 in English at 2113 UTC as a rating 333. January 4, HD Australia on 15340 in English from Kononura at 1527 UTC as a rating 333. January 4, Adventist World Radio on 11750 from Germany in English at 1547 UTC as a rating 322. January 4, Adventist World Radio on 15215 in English from Guam at 1600 UTC as a rating 444. January 4, Radio New Zealand International on 9765 in English from Rajataki at 1611 UTC as a rating 444. January 5, China Radio International on 12070 in Filipino from Beijing at 1150 UTC as a rating 444. January 5, Radio Taiwan on 1359 medium wave in English from Taiwan at 1140 UTC as a rating 444. January 5, KBS World Radio on 15575 in English at 1305 UTC as a rating 444. January 6, RIB, Voice of Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting on 17715 in Indonesian at 1303 UTC as a rating 444. January 6, AWR on 15155 5 in Vietnamese from Guam at 1317 UTC. ASA rating 333. January 6, Radio Free Asia on 13735 in Burmese at 1320. UTC ASA rating 555. January 6, All India Radio 9690 in English from Bangalore at 1430. ASA rating 444. January 19, T8 WH World Harvest Radio on 9955 in English at 0840. ASA rating 444. January 23, AWR on 17540 in English from Guam at 81048. UTC ASA rating 444. And January 27, HJB Australia and 15400 in Indonesian at 1247. UTC ASA rating 333. We have a special QSL card just for you. For a reception report, please send 1 IRC International Reply Coupon or $2 Return postage will be greatly appreciated. And friends, if you want to get the transcript of today's Pilipinas DX News and see our QSL card series, please visit http://PilipinasDX.wordpress.com. That's http://PilipinasDX.wordpress.com. Follow us also on Facebook, www.facebook.com/PilipinasDX. Or you may want to send us your comments, suggestions, reception logs, and informations to PilipinasDX@yahoo.com. That's PILIPINASDX for PilipinasDX.wordpress.com. This has been Henry Umalay for Wavescan in Bacolod City, Negros Occidental, Central Philippines, saying mabuhay at maraming salamat po.
We end Wavescan with some interesting music today, played on a theater organ at Scotty's Castle, which is a mansion built in the middle of Death Valley National Park in California. Rex Curry playing The Streets of Laredo, a U.S. folk song. You've been listening to Wavescan, the International DX program from Adventist World Radio, researched and written by Adrian Peterson in Indianapolis. Next week, focus on Asia Philippines, the Navy wireless at Cavite, also our Bangladesh DX report. A reminder that we have QSL cards available for you, one from WRMI, one from AWR. You can send reception reports to Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. That's Wavescan, Box 29235, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46229, USA. You can also contact us via email at wavescan@awr.org. That's wavescan@awr.org. I'm Jeff White at WRMI in Miami. Till next week, good listening, everyone.